Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Up Your Brave live stream panel series. You'll be really happy to know that now all of the show notes and all of the videos of all the replays are now up on the website. Woo woo, small celebration because, it took us a while to get there. It's nataliecutlerwelsh.com/video series. And as you know, if you've been following us for a while, we've got everything from leadership to motivation to mindset to resilience to supporting and empowering teens and kids and everything in between. So definitely check that out. Today, we are going to dive into the topic of sharing your story. And this is such a cool topic. I feel like sharing your story is partly connecting with people, partly helping to give people inspiration or courage. So I love how that blends so nicely into our theme, which is Up Your Brave. Let's meet our guests. Here they are. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So we've got Lisa, originally from Wellington, but I think you're traveling at the moment. Well, within New Zealand. We've got Terry Williams, the amazing comedian and speaker. Hey, Terry.
Hello.
And over there, looking very suave indeed, after her fitness class, we've got Roz Ryan. Hey, Roz.
Hey.
Awesome. So what we're going to do, you guys, as per usual, I'm going to give you a little bit of a lowdown on our very first guest, and then we're going to dive into tip number one. So let's do that. All right. So Lisa, who I don't need to read because I know her so well. So Lisa Faherty is originally from Ireland, as you'll notice from her accent when she starts speaking. Now, Lisa is a life coach and a surf instructor. So when I was over in Wellington, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, my little 9-year-old got a surf lesson from Lisa, and that was pretty cool. Now, Lisa also has a wellness business called Live, Laugh, Love. And I love the fact that you've got laughing in there because joy and fun is crucial. So I'll hand it over to you, Lisa, to elaborate a little bit about your backstory, your journey, maybe how you ended up here in New Zealand, and take us to tip number one.
Oh, thank you, Natalie. Okay, so my name is Lisa. I have the business Live, Laugh, Love Oils. So I sell essential oils at the same time. I do, as Natalie has just mentioned, life coaching and surf instructor at the same time. And I'm currently about to combine the life coaching and surf instructing and do surf life coaching, which will be fun. So I'll be doing a bit of a launch soon with that. And then how did I come to New Zealand? I had a travel bug and I'm here longer than expected.
Same.
So I just came over traveling initially, and now my partner's from here. And we run a surf school together in Wellington, and it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So awesome. Is there the first tip about sharing a story?
Sharing a story. So with my essential oils and life coaching business, I have an Instagram page, and I guess my tips would be that we as people, we crave connection and kind of human interaction. And I guess because social media is so huge now, and we're getting that partially through, well, especially when we're in quarantine, but through social media. And I just share daily on my stories, and I keep it very authentic and real, as if I'm talking to them in person, kind of, rather than just selling a product or whatever. They are part of what's going on in a way, so they get to, I don't know behind the scenes and who I am, as well as the product and what I sell, I guess. Yeah, so just keeping it authentic, and then people start to connect and they want to know more. I'm more likely to be a return customer.
Nice. I'm sure Roz will have some comments on that as well. We've got Steph Johnson joining us. Good to see you, Steph. Hey, by the way, you guys, if you are watching the replay, please comment below, or if you're watching live, let us know where you're watching from geographically. That would be amazing as well. All right, Terry, let's go to you. So Terry, who I know from the speaking world, but I'm super excited to learn more about you here on this live stream. It's always fun to get to know people a little bit better. So Terry has a rare combination of being a leadership trainer and authoring 5 books. Oh my gosh, go you. That is awesome. And he's also a professional stand-up comedian. In between zipping around Asia Pacific region normally, delivering keynote presentations about change, leadership, and motivation. He facilitates workshops on the same topics, helping leaders and teams to help themselves. In between, he's usually doing comedy on cruise ships. Well, I'm so happy that I went on my cruise in the 2019. His books, including The Brain-Based Boss and Getting Better Buy-In, take psychological research and break it down to make it interesting and useful for people wanting to improve their performance. Go you, Terry. That is awesome. We'll put his links, like everyone's links, in the show notes. Welcome, Terry.
Thanks, Natalie. Hi, everybody. My little tip is going to be an acronym to help you bring your stories to life. So I'll flip you another link as well, Natalie, so people can just download that for themselves afterwards.
Cool.
As a comedian and as a speaker and as a trainer, when people are asking for tips and things, particularly around stories, because stories, as Lisa was saying, connect people and bring ideas to life and give them relevance. To sort of analyze those, there's the old saying about analyzing a story or analyzing a joke is like dissecting a frog. You do learn a lot about the frog, but the frog doesn't make it. So it's when you do delve into these sorts of things, it can get a bit crisp and analytical and medical. But I think it's important to have a structure. And it's a cool little book called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. And they've got a little 6-part framework in there. So if you're not a particularly confident person, or if you've got some really great stories, but you tend to waffle a bit, and you want to make them as powerful and pointed and efficient and effective as possible, their model's called Success. Nice and easy to remember, SUCCESS. And the S stands for specific. So if you're telling a story, don't make it about a friend and I were having a chat recently. It's Murray and me were talking last night or something like that. So it's very, very specific details, makes it more connectable and makes it more believable. The U stands for unexpected. So just like a good drama, Romeo and Juliet, young people in love, turns out they're from opposing warring families. Oh, that wasn't expected. That's where the drama occurs, and that draws people's interest. Oh, I wonder how this is going to turn out. Then the couple of C's in there in Success, that's for concrete and credible. So, describe things. If you're sitting in a chair, make it, is it a couch or is it a director's chair or whatever it is? Make it sound tangible. And again, credible. So if you're throwing some stats in there, don't say most people or over half, say 53.6. Again, just lends a bit more credibility to what is otherwise an emotional story, can hit those people whose brains aren't the emotional kinds, but those factual folks as well. Which leads to the E, which stands for emotional connection. So even those folks who are bean counting accountants, they still have some kind of right brain, left brain thing going on there, where they need to have both the facts and the feelings just to reinforce it and hit more audience than your story might otherwise do. So some kind of emotional connection, a universally relatable moral of the story, if you like. And lastly, the S stands for structure, beginning, middle, and end. And talking about Romeo and Juliet, or virtually any other story you would have read in book form or seen in a movie. There's a little bit at the start where you set the scene. There's that turning point where the drama's introduced, rising action, some kind of climax, and a bit of a message as we sort of absorb the fact that it didn't. Spoiler alert! If you hadn't not up on Romeo and Juliet, doesn't end well. So to find some learning from the story. And so that's it. Success. SUCCESS. That's my first tip.
I was taking notes. What was that second S at the very end?
Oh, sorry. Story structure. Story structure.
Oh, story. Okay, got it. Awesome. I'm gonna actually.
1.2 S's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, cool. Very, very good. And that's so useful. I mean, that is amazing. I think you're right, because a lot of people, they'll tell a story, but they'll do way too much to preamble, right? They'll be able to be like, yada, 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 get to the point. So that's really good. That's a great, great structure. I love that. I'm going to share that with my peeps. All right, Roz, let's go to you. So Roz and I met at a workshop last year, and I'm super excited to learn more about your business because I know you help people with their marketing. So Rosalind Ryan from OMG Marketing has been working as a digital marketer for the past 11 years, also a fitness instructor. I love the multiple talents we've got going on today. Her passion is helping people in their health and wellness niche to spread their wellness message with their ideal audience. She supports and coaches them to get in front of their social media by helping them connect with their health and wellness tribe. Yay, welcome, Roz.
Thank you. So a big part of what, and as Terry and Lisa have both said, story is such an emotional way to connect with your audience, especially on social media. You know, gone are the days now that we can just put posts up and quotes and hope that'll work, because it won't. So a big part of what I do with my clients as well is bring their, what we call like their fit story in. And to be honest, most of my either my health coaches, my personal trainers, they're actually trying to help people just like them who have been in their shoes either years ago or at a time in their life. And the reason that they've gone into fitness or holistic or wellness or anything like that is because of a life-changing moment. So a big part of that marketing for them is trying to coach them into bringing their backstory in to be relatable to their audience, because once you can actually show that vulnerability, which is really hard and not everyone's up for that for the first time, it takes a bit of coaching and a few strategies, but once they start to dig into their why and create social media posts that actually connect with the audience, so people will read their posts and think, oh my God, that was me, I was you. It gives that relatable content where people go, actually, I'm going to keep following this person. Their posts relate to me. They've been a little bit vulnerable. I've been in their shoes. So it kind of has like a when, where, and an aha moment to it, and then an action to content, that the stories that they bring through. So on that note, I also had to do the work myself and also create content myself that led me to be a bit vulnerable last year with my own stuff. So I can at least say to them, look, I know how this feels for you guys, but I know that once you start sharing a bit of your why and your story and where you were in that moment in time, your ideal audience is actually going to connect with you, and creating the content and the strategy for, your social media, it's going to be so much easier than trying to think of a pretty graphic, a nice quote, or just something to stick up on your social media. It just will get easier for you to connect with your audience. So that's what I do. And over the past year, as a lot of you guys will know, the story content with social media has become so much more relevant, and you need to have it, because otherwise you're just invisible. So a big part of bringing that story through is helping them become more visible to their audience. So that's what I do, and that's what I love doing when I coach them. It does take a bit of coaching, as you guys can imagine. Not everyone realizes they have a story that would connect with their audience, right? They don't really think that what they did 2 years ago and the reason they went into fitness and health is important, but it is. So that's my tip for you guys, is to think about your backstory with your marketing and see if there's a moment there that you can bring through and tell it to your audience on social media. And you don't have to tell the whole thing at once. You can just take little bites of it and just share moments in time.
Yes, I love that so much. So do you recommend, I know Lisa does a lot of stories on Instagram stories, and you can do Facebook stories. With your clients, do you tell them to do, so we've got stories, which is the content, but now we also have Instagram stories and Facebook stories. Do you encourage them to do that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, stories are great for that behind the moment scenes, a bit of the reality, like this is how I start my day, this is what went wrong today, this went right. But if they, I still really push the whole do a Instagram post and tell a story in there, because believe it or not, it's quite funny. People, although stories are great and people are reading them, they still want some context into your life. So they do still love to read the longer captions or longer posts. So totally, on the move, capture those stories.
Yeah, awesome. I guess partly it can be part of their customer journey. They see the story, which is quick, and then if they're like, wow, that person really resonates, they're going to go to your page, and you got to have some more content there. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd just like to applaud Roz's point about relatability too. I think it's really a temptation to slip into if you've got a hero story, to make yourself the hero of your hero story. And if it is a story about you climbing a mountain or winning a gold medal, it's kind of hard not to, because you're literally and deliberately telling a story about you achieving a great thing. So somehow you got to make the protagonist of the story either the person you're telling the story to, or somebody who's very similar to the person you're telling the story to. And I think the great example is those scared straight ex-prisoner stories who are telling young offenders. That's absolutely perfect in terms of timeliness and relatability. It's a great point, Roz.
Yeah,
Awesome.
no, absolutely. Thank you.
That was really cool as well, Terry. You mentioned that. I did. I've got my Amplify membership, and last week we were talking about branding and stories. And I said to the girls, there's kind of, there's more than two types of stories, but there's generally you're the hero or someone else is the hero, right? And I said, if you're doing a keynote speech and it's 60 minutes and you're doing two stories within that, don't make yourself the hero both times. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Very cool. All right, guys, we're going to go to tip number 2 in a second. One of the tips that I'll share is having a back pocket story, meaning having a couple of stories you can just bring out at any time. And I don't necessarily mean like at cocktail parties or whatever, but it might be. So, the kind of FAQs, the frequently asked questions that you get, like Roz, you mentioned, like, oh, how did you get started in your wellness business? Like, that's probably something that people will get asked. How did you get started in your business? And so having a back pocket story that you know how to tell, you tell it well, you can tell a really quick version, you can tell a longer version, is so important. Like yesterday I got interviewed on a podcast and we got on and she goes, oh, did you get the questions? And I'm like, I was like, I'm really bad at email. So probably your PA probably sent them to me. And she's like, oh, I'm like, don't worry. I can just fly with it. It's all good. But so some of these were questions, like the back pocket questions, like what was the biggest challenge in your journey as an entrepreneur so far? Like, how did you get started? And so it was really good that I had those stories in the back pocket. So that's my tip for people, is just think about the things you get asked quite often, and then have a couple of stories ready to go so that you don't get stumped if you do get asked at a cocktail party or on a podcast or wherever you might be. All right, let's go to tip number 2. Okay, Lisa, tip or insight around sharing your story?
So tip number 2 for me, what I often do is I use my platform again. So I'm sharing my stories on a social media platform. So I would often, use it as a teaching tool. So a lot of customers who are already customers, I make it kind of, it's also discipline for me as well, because if they bought my product, I want them to know how to use it on a regular basis. So just taking them through what I'm doing with the essential oils and how I'm using them. And then it's also teaching and training for them, so that it's like continuous knowledge. But at the same time, I guess in a way also marketing. So you're selling and educating, but more focused on the educating. For me I find that it kind of naturally flows into the selling as well, in doing the educating part of it. So yeah, just using it largely as an education platform is my second tip.
Awesome. And I know that Steph was commenting before, and I know that you talk about education. She has this story that she tells about her daughter with lavender oil and a burn. And the reason that she tells that story, and I share that story, I'm like, this isn't my story, my friend Steph, and I use her story again to educate. And people have done that. They remember, oh my gosh, I burned myself. Oh, that's right, the cup of tea story about the burn and lavender. So yeah, totally good point about stories being not just for education, not just for inspiration and connection, but for like remembering things. Awesome.
Yeah. It's just
awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so for those of you that are watching,
education.
She's got a bit of a delay. For those of you that are watching us today, please go ahead and comment if there's a certain story that you've got maybe in your back pocket. I've got one that I call my smoked salmon bagel story. I know what that means. You guys don't know what that means, but for me, it reminds me which story I'm telling. And so you might have different stories that you use maybe in your business or in your life, or the how you got started story. So please go ahead and comment with that. All right, Terry, let's go to your second tip.
Well, my second tip actually links very strongly to the tip you just gave about the back pocket stories. And my mental model isn't back pocket. I have like a bunch of Post-it notes on this notice board in my mind. And they're all color-coded. There's a couple of little words indicating the name of the story, and I'll just pluck it out. So if I'm emceeing an event, I've got generally an opening story and I've got a closing story. But if something just crops up in the now, I just pluck it, and it seems like you've thought of something spontaneous, even though it's a story I've told 75 times before. So I want to add on to that idea is how to pick the right back pocket story and the right timing and targeting of it. And so the key here is the oldest human communication technique that we've got, which is questions. So when you're in the drafting mode to create some of these stories and you've just got some ideas, or not even any ideas, it's just to think of a baseball diamond. Good old fashioned, you're at home base, over there's third base, over there's first base. So initially we go wide by asking those very broad, open, interrogative questions that you were talking about before. What's the worst thing that's happened? What's the best thing that's happened? What's the most recent thing that's happened? And just having a wee chat with people who might be part of your audience, or even just the booker, or even just your dog, just to sort of start you thinking about what might be the answers to those questions. And if I'm at an event, that's why, and I'm just working the room or schmoozing or just killing time before my turn to go up, that's what I do, just have a conversation. But 80% of that conversation is the other person talking, and 20% is me asking questions as I go wide. Then when I've got enough information, then I start narrowing it down with more sort of probing and ultimately sort of closing questions, trying to find out what's the moral of the story, what's the key takeaway, how can I connect to the wider audience as a result. And my classic example was the first ever corporate gig I did 17 years ago with, I won't name the company, with a large international corporate. And I was just chatting around beforehand, just asking questions. And it turned out there was a young chap named Stuart who'd started out working in the warehouse, dreamed of one day becoming a rep. Got to get a rep, got to be a car, got to get a rep, got to be a car. And finally worked his way up after years and had become a rep and had gotten his car. And through a series of questions, I worked out, he'd actually crashed the car that day. His very first day of having the car, 15 minutes into the job, he'd crashed the car. And so it wasn't even much of a story that needed to be said. My first question to the crowd was, hey, everyone, after 5 function, might be drinking tonight. Want to organise a ride home. Someone suggested Stuart. Is Stuart around? And so it's never going to be funny anywhere else ever again. But in that particular moment with that particular crowd, I don't know if I've ever got a bigger laugh than that. So I would never have thought to construct that very briefest of stories. But a story doesn't have to be a linear one-way broadcast narrative out of your brain into your mouth and spraying it across the ears of the people in the room. I think even if you are telling a story, to frame it with some questions. Who here has ever been in a situation like this? Who's here has ever dreamed of one day becoming a surfer, or or felt they could never become a fit person? So you're sort of activating parts of their brain that'll make them listen, tune in, and connect more to your story. So that's my second tip there, Natalie.
The other thing you mentioned that I want to dive into deeper is you said, even if I've told it 70 times. So that is also a talent, is to be able to tell a story you've told many times, but make them feel important and make it feel fresh and not just so pre-rehearsed.
I think that's exactly right too. So I never write these stories. I don't script them at all, unless there's a particular phrase that needs to be done for the rhyming or the rhythm or the legality of it. Mm-hmm. But mostly they're skeletal templates, and I'll try and flesh it out with examples from people in the room or people from their industry as best I can. I mean, some stories are literally stories that actually happened, and they happened to me, so they are going to be a bit more of a narrative. But the connecting tissue will always be relating to that corporate or that client on that particular day, or even news stories. I forget the exact nature of the joke, but I was delivering a speech on the day of the fire at the convention centre, and I just made some reference to that. Again, never going to be able to use that joke ever again, but it was very real and live at that point in time. And I think that's what makes a story. And I'm not sure anyone knows about else other than professional speakers know about the myth of the starfish story, but it's a story that's been told way too many times in way too many contexts, and is just wafer thin in its relevance. But I've seen some people take it and turn it into something that really does connect, because the story, the point they're making is different.
Nice. All right, let's go to Roz for your second tip.
My second tip, I find it quite useful to use what's called the ABT. I don't know if you guys have called it the ABT. It's
but I love acronyms, so I'm having a grand old time today with the acronym.
It's and, but, therefore. So I was trying to think of, there's actually a really popular song that actually uses this acronym, which is actually quite cool. I'll have to, I wish I had brought it in and you could have posted it in there. But so basically what you do is you set the scene, and then you raise the stakes. And then the but is identify the problem, therefore reveal the solution. So I wish I'd actually bought, there's an actual, I think it's called Maybe Baby. You've probably heard the track. And they use the context of this in their actual song. So it's just a really great way to think
You're
about.
welcome to sing, by the way. Like, do not hold back.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to sing it. I actually started to remember it in my head, but I don't want to put you guys through that. Yeah, so think about what that is, like to set the scene of the story, raise the stakes, identify the problem. So sometimes it could be just a short, relatable time. I know as a mum myself, and having gone through a few stages in my time, I've probably had more growth since becoming a mum than before. I've been pushed into areas that I wouldn't have even gone into before, but I've taken the leap. And I don't know why being a mum has made me, I don't know, more courageous and more willing to give things a go, but I definitely have. So I've had many different stories that I can tell, but when I talk to my audience, and if I'm talking to a mum, they quite often think they don't have anything to share that's relatable. And, you know, when a mum talks to a mum, there are so many aha moments to bring into context, right? Or if a PT talks to another personal trainer, you know, there's so many moments they can say, do you know what, sometimes, you know, I have this mum and we're working out all week. Not only am I her PT, but I'm her counsellor. I'm also giving her nutrition advice on what she should cook for the week, how she could go sugar-free, and also listening to her stories about, you know, what's going wrong with her relationship right now. So only PTs will get that, because when they do one-on-ones with their client, this is all the information that gets shared with them in literally an hour. So my thing is always trying to say, look, guys, you've always got content. You've always got something you can share. You're just not wearing one hat. You're wearing many hats. So I always try to give them the context of what are you going to try and raise the awareness of, what's the aha moment, and what's the solution going to be from that, and then try and put that into some context, into a video or a post on social media, or even just conversation like this.
Yeah, exactly. So good. So many points coming up today. And I love that we've got like the speaker perspective from Terry. We've got the business perspective with Lisa, and marketing perspective with Roz, which is so cool. I'm going to throw into the mix. I know Terry's an author as well, but the author perspective. So, you know, sharing your story. So for me, I was doing a blog called Ecocentric. This is back in like 2006 or something like that, like a while ago. And it was all about the environment and things like that. And then I had kids, and I was like, oh my God, like, whoa, no one told me how hard it is to keep the marriage alive when you have kids. Everyone talks about the stroller and like breastfeeding and this, that, and the other, but I'm like, why does no one talk about the relationship? So that's why I started kind of blogging or just writing on scraps of paper here and there, anywhere I could find a journal or anything. I would just write my thoughts about the love side of things. And as a result, cobbled together, eventually 5 years later, it became a book with my friend Jackie, a co-authored book. But I guess the message I'm sharing here is, you know, a lot of people have a goal in their life, like I want to write a book one day. Everyone has the potential to write a book. And if you just keep track of your stories, all these stories we've been mentioning, you know, if you find a theme that kind of wraps it all together, the content is all there. So two things here, tools, getting a bit geeky. I use Trello to keep track of my stories, like my smoked salmon bagel story and my you are the CEO of your own pie story and all my other stories that I have. So I use Trello to kind of keep track of that. And sometimes Google Docs, but I also use, I'm starting to use Scrivener to write my Up Your Brave book, which is in the works. Hopefully it will not take 5 years, but Scrivener is a tool that you can use for writing a book. I am not the expert in Scrivener, but that's what I'm using. So for those of you out there that have written a book, or you're in the process, or you're pondering it, definitely, check out those tools for sure. All right. Any comments on books from you, Terry, before we move on to the final round?
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes when you're writing a book, you'll take a story that you tell live and you think, I'll just take one of my speeches and get it transcribed and I'll just cut and paste the text. That'll be sweet. And it freaking isn't. What comes out of your mouth is not what was in your head, and it was not what was down on paper. And the problem from my perspective, having just said, yes, it's a skeletal story and I generally customize it to a degree for the audience I'm speaking to, you've got the risk of making it generic for a universal audience and stripping out a lot of its meaning. So sometimes I really do take that questioning approach, tell my version of the story as pure as it is to me in written form, and then use the narrative text after that to sort of, again, asking questions about how that might apply to you. Have you had a situation like that? What would you have done differently in my shoes kind of thinking? Almost sort of taking a coaching narrative and put it into a sort of post-story learning experience, kind of the T of the ABT, isn't it? The therefore. I was thinking of Romeo and Juliet when Roz was saying that, and they were from warring families. No, and they fell in love, but they were from warring families. Therefore, I'm not sure what the message of Romeo and Juliet was actually. 400 years later, could be with that love book you're thinking about writing, Natalie.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, let's do the final round, you guys. This is where we do the what's cool about you, what's coming up, and how can we connect. All right, Lisa.
Cool. So what is cool about me? I worked as a flight attendant before I came to New Zealand, living in Dubai, which at the time I thought it was cool. It was fun. I got to travel a lot and loved it. And then what's coming up? What's coming up is probably my surf life coaching launch. So I'm just building up now towards creating a launch so that people know about it. And we'll see where it goes, I guess. I'm wondering, is it something more summer themed?
We're just going to ride the wave.
Yeah, but no, I'm looking forward to that. So maybe that can be cool too. Yeah.
That's totally cool. All right, where can we find you? So is that website live? Like, I'll put the link up. You guys, as per always, I will include any of these guys' social media platforms, websites, all the things in the show notes, as well as updating the description above. But Lisa, where can we find you on Instagram and Facebook?
Facebook. So at the minute I have it's One Life Coaching. So I have a website, onelifecoaching.co.nz, and then my Instagram and Facebook are connected in there.
Awesome.
So it's One Life Coaching. Yeah.
Thank you. Great. All right, let's go to you, Terry. What's cool about you?
Well, cool and different and not already mentioned. I think the comedy side of things. So it is when I'm delivering training I've got a corporate training gig tomorrow, and I always try and just squeeze in as non-shoehorned as possible fairly early on in the piece that I do have this sideline as a comedian. Just makes me seem a lot more interesting than I actually am, and a real good icebreaker in terms of people sort of any sort of hesitation they might have had about the training or the topic. They're way more open to it now, and I've been doing that for years now. It's very, very useful. But the interesting thing, I think, is maybe 4 years ago, every year I do 2 new dangerous things. And one of my dangerous things that year was to commit publicly to publishing on my Facebook comedy page a new joke per day, every day. And there was 300. I don't know if you write jokes, but they are varying in quality, and you have to write a good number of them to get anything that's worth telling in public. So my general rule of thumb is you have to write 100 to get 10 that are worth sharing, to get 1 that is worth keeping. So that was 4 years ago, and I've been doing it every day since then. I've kept it going past that 1 year goal. So if people are interested in seeing a diverse range of varying quality jokes, I think I'm on a bit of a roll this week. TerryWilliamsComedy.com, and you just search Terry Williams Comedian on Facebook. That's primarily where most people see it. That's my biggest social media group is in fact not my business, not my speaking, not my training, but Terry Williams Comedy on Facebook. Thousands of Americans in the middle of the country really love my little daily jokes.
That's so awesome. And also just with the cruise ship thing, because obviously you can't do that right now, but yeah, like how is that? Is that really fun going on the cruise ship and doing the comedy?
Well, if you like cruises, then yes, I guess it is. It's probably more of a young person's game just financially, because yet they pay you really well for one night, but you're stuck on the boat for 7 days. And first time out, it's freaking awesome because you're the star of the boat. It does rather depend how well the show goes. I was told when I got on the first cruise, if you're on the Monday and then you're there for 6 days afterwards and it doesn't go well, that's a long 6 days. But if it goes well, then you can be a rock star for 6 days. So fortunately, it went pretty well that first time. So, but by and largely, yeah, it's just probably not something I'd look at. Even without a virus, I probably wouldn't be looking at sticking at that. But it is, depending on the destinations and such, it's for a young person starting out, great gig.
Yeah, good conversation starter too. All right, Roz, what's cool about you? What's coming up, and where can we connect?
Well, over isolation, I actually created a TikTok for business course. So
wow.
If you are using TikTok at the moment and don't understand the value behind it for your business, reach out to me for a chat, because it is an amazing generator for business TikTok. It's not all just about dancing around and lip syncing, although I love doing that myself. It's one of my faves. I realized there's a really tapped market in there. So I launched it to a test crowd during isolation. I think I had 8 people doing it, all of which were aged group from probably like 38 to 61 was my oldest student that did TikTok. And just, it's basically, you need to be able to teach yourself how to capture your audience from anywhere from 15 to 60 seconds in your content, and then obviously be able to build that community, which is actually really awesome to do on TikTok right now, and then transfer them back through your funnel, whether it's to your Instagram, your YouTube, or when you get 1,000 followers, your website. So if you aren't using TikTok, I want all you guys to hop on there and just take a look. It is so refreshing that it is social media content that is, no one that's on Facebook is on TikTok, okay? It's a completely different audience. I think the other day, one of the ladies I was helping, she's not even a client of mine, I've just been helping her. She goes to me, look, I've been on TikTok, I've only grown to about 100 followers. She's a 59-year-old. She's a professional bodybuilder. She works and trains women, and she's very well known in New Zealand. And I said to her, look, you need to do 2 different videos and change 2 different strategies on your account. She went from 100 followers. One of her viral videos went viral, and she went 800 in 2 days. And she got 3 inquiries from overseas for a plan. So, Terry, your comedy could go really well on TikTok, I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll look into it.
Connection.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Cool. So when I went to the Gary Vee event, Gary Vee, he's always got his finger on the pulse, and he's saying, you guys, LinkedIn and TikTok. He's like, those are the platforms that are going through the roof. And so there you go, Roz. You are on it, girl. So yeah, we'll send people over to you. Lisa, talk to Roz. Get onto TikTok.
I know. It looks very entertaining. I have to say. On
TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, which is just Roslyn Ryan, ROSLYN, and Facebook is the same, Roslyn Ryan -OMG. Yeah, hit me up on there, and if you want some tips on how to start up on TikTok, give me a call. I'm actually doing. I'm excited to be doing. I'm talking to some Auckland University students in August who are doing their marketing degree, and they're getting me in to guest speak on TikTok as a digital strategy. So
amazing.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
That is so, so cool. All right. Thank you so much. So for those of you guys that are watching live or replay, please comment. I love having you hear it, but I love action as well. So I would love to see what is something that from today that's kind of bubbled up for you, something that you're going to take action on. So maybe it's that you're going to write down some of your stories because you realize you do have awesome stories. Or maybe you're going to get on TikTok, or maybe you're going to start writing that book that you've been meaning to write. Who knows? Let us know. If you're brave enough to claim it in a comment, we would love to see that from you. All right. Thank you so much to my gorgeous guests. So amazing to have you here. Thank you so much. I'll just pop you guys. Don't go away. I'll pop you off to the side, and to let everyone else know that we've got more sessions coming up in the next few weeks. We're looking at growing your business as well as doing more about empowering kids. The two that I've done so far, I've done 2 on teens and 1 on kids, and very popular topic. So we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper. Later on this week, if you're watching this now, I'm going to be talking to Robert Tighe about your origin story and writing your origin story. So we're carrying on this amazing theme right through the week and sharing some tips and insights with you guys. So thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, Natalie Cutler-Welsh saying, remember to up your brave, say what you want, and make it happen. See ya. See you guys.